Jaya Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Giri Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Dai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creation, Chapter 2, The Elephant's Gajendra's Crisis, text number 32. Naman ime gyataya aturam gaja. 31. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Itam, text number 31. Itam gajendra sajada pasam katam. Pranasya dehi vivasho jadrichaja. Aparajan atma vimoksheshi. Sorry. Aparajan atma vimokshane chiram. Dadyabhyamam buding atabhyapadaya dyata. Itam gajendra sajada pasankapan. Pranasya dehi vivashoti. Pranasya dehi vivaso jadrichaya. Aparajan atma vimokshasne shiram. Dadyabhyamam bhudinathabhyapadyata. Itam gajendra sadaja pasankatam. Pranasya dehi vivasho jadrichaya. Aparajan admami mokshane chiram. Dadyabhyamam budhimathabhyapadyata. Christian. Itam, in this way, Gaja Indraha, the king of the elephants, Saha, he, Jada, when, Apa, obtained, Shankatam, such a dangerous position, Pranasya, of life, the he who is embodied, Vivashaha, circumstantially helpless, Jadrichaya, by the will of providence, Aparayam, being unable, Atma Vimokshane, to save himself, Shiram, for a long time, that you began to think seriously. Imam, this, Buddhim, decision, Atha, thereupon, Abhyapadyata, reach. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When the king of the elephants saw that he was under the clutches of the crocodile by the will of providence and, being embodied and circumstantially helpless, could not save himself from danger, he was extremely afraid of being killed. He consequently thought for a long time and finally reached the following decision. Purport. Everyone in the material world is engaged in a struggle for existence. Everyone tries to save himself from danger, but when one is unable to save himself, if he is pious, he then takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:16. Chaturvidha bhajante manjana sukritin arjuna arto jigyasuratarthi gyanicha bharatab shadvad. Four kinds of pious men, namely, one who is in danger, one who is in need of money, one who is searching for knowledge, and one who is inquisitive, begin to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to save or to advance, to be safe or to advance. The king of the elephants, in this condition of danger, decided to seek shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. After considerable thought, he intelligently arrived at this correct decision. Such a decision is not reached by a sinful man. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are pious, Sukriti, can decide that in the dangerous and awkward condition, one should seek shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Itham gajendra sajad sa jatapa sankatam pranasya dehi vivasho yadrichaja abarajan atma mimokshane chiram dadyavyamam bhudin athat vyapadyata. When the king of the elephants saw that he was under the clutches of the crocodile by the will of providence and, being in body and circumstantially helpless, could not save himself from danger, he was extremely afraid of being killed. He consequently thought for a long time and finally reached the following decision. Om Agyana Timirandasya Janandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyari Satarine Vanchakalpataruvyasha Kripasindu Yeva Chapatitanam Pavanayo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namaha. So it's a very important lesson, and this is a pastime in the scriptures that is Nityananda Prana quoted yesterday, that is pretty much given as a prime example what to do in a very difficult situation in which one is in great danger. And like the stories of the Bhagavatams are very well chosen to illustrate, a particular principle, and it becomes very graphic to transmit or to teach this principle. And like the battlefield of Kurukshetra, that whole the principle of surrendering to Krishna in such a dire circumstance is very graphic and very extreme, just to teach us, that when we are in the bodily conscious of life, then the first things that, the steps that we have to take to be able to have a progressive sort of a progressive spiritual advancement of our consciousness, like that, or better to say, let me see how to put it, to have a spiritually progressive path, and what to do, what are the things that we need to learn. So in this case, the the story is very graphic in terms of, a living entity who is extremely confident and with all the material circumstances in place, everything desirable was there. The Gajendra was a very powerful being, have great control, and has so uh, has a very loving family and followers. So everything was in place, and it was in the most idyllic environment to enjoy. And so when one is in those situations, what happens is that uh, one is naturally feeling very much in control. Our shelters are well in place. And the main shelter that we have is our capacity, our strength. You start with your own self, the capacity that I have to deal with all these, difficulties. I can figure it out, either by my physical strength or by my mental strength or by my intelligence. I can actually take care of whatever circumstances, are there. And that is something that materialistic, the materialistic way of life, or the materialistic consciousness, or the materialistic concept of life teaches. Basically, indoctrinates us from the very beginning. You have to be self-sufficient. You have to be. You can't rely. You can't depend on anyone. You have to be able to take care of yourself and take care of those who are depending on you. So you have to prepare. Basically, the materialistic society prepares us to be completely ready to take care of anything that comes to us, that confronts us. But they do that in despite that historically has been a failure. It doesn't stand by itself, because there is always throughout history, so mankind has been trying either individually or collectively to maintain this sort of paradigm, and it always fails, either by nature or by other societies. Like that, empires comes and goes, individuals comes and goes, like that. And the whole the whole scheme to be able to deal with these difficulties always fail, because that is the nature of this material creation. So Nityananda Prana quoted a famous verse from the second canto, in which Sukadev Goswami, when he started to answer the questions of Maharaj Parikshit, he brought this point. He started by praising Maharaj Parikshit's question. What was Maharaj Parikshit's inquiry? What is a man who is about to die? What is the duties of someone who is about to die? So what is that a man who is about to die is supposed to do? And then Sukadev Goswami was very encouraged by that question. He praised Maharaj Parikshit that such an inquiry is for the benefit of all societies most relevant, because that is something that is basically goes at the highest principle that we have to obtain in this material world, and that's for all living beings. So Sukadev Goswami goes to tell Maharaj Parikshit this famous verse, Deha Patya Kalatradishu Atma Sanyeshu Ashatuapi Tesham Pramatoni Dhanam Pashyan Api Napashyati. That persons devoid of Atma Tattva, Atma Tattva means Atma Tattva means knowledge of the self, the soul. So persons who doesn't understand that they're a spirit soul, that they think that it's material body. So persons devoid of this Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. So, a society that is devoid of transcendental knowledge, a society that is devoid of this understanding of the soul, of the supreme soul, and a relationship of both, is a society that have no clue how to deal with tragedies or with difficulties or with difficult situations that comes to you. And what is the first thing that they look to deal with this? First, the dehi, my own self, my strength. And this is the case of Gajendra. Gajendra first, was very confident because he was so powerful. And he is ready to get this crocodile, out, just like he deals with other big, creatures in this environment. But he started to see that he was unable, even by his great strength, to deal with that. So that soldier, that shelter failed. The shelter of his friends, relatives, children, wife, followers who were trying to get him out, that also failed. So those are the shelters that, people devoid of Atma Tattva, they look for in situations of difficulty. And Sukadev Goswami say that they do that even having sufficient experience that there's always failure in these cases. We see it. It happens with everybody in all circumstances. We see the rise of great personalities, with great power, and we see throughout how they fall. He always goes like that. He always goes like that. Nityananda Prana yesterday was quoted, the example of Muhammad Ali. Very powerful, influential, famous, just by his skills. And just how he went to the top and then, dwindles in such a dramatic way that he was basically having to have someone, helping go around. Empires that goes ups and downs, like that, of great power. We saw the communist empire, Soviet Union, how during the 70s and the 80s, was very, very powerful, but then in the 90s just went down like that. So things like that, sufficient experiences, and still they cannot see it. They cannot see it. Why they cannot see it? Well, Prabhupada quotes there. You have to be pious. You have to be a devotee to actually be able to look up to Krishna at the end for all shelter. And we have two great examples in the scriptures. Well, Gajendra is a great example, and it's a very much quoted example of being in that situation of great danger, and at the end, after realizing that none of your shelters was going to help you, he looked up to Krishna. You know, sorry. In the scriptures, there's two examples. One similar to Gajendra, and one that didn't have to go to the anxiety of Gajendra that he had to go. He was peaceful from the very from any of the stages of the extreme dangerous situation. And the example is Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was completely fearless. And Prahlad Maharaj has a particular, he was the emblem of the particular practice of devotional service that is Krishna's Smaranam. He was always remembering Krishna. And because of that quality, he was completely fearless. At no point Prahlad Maharaj freaked out. At no point he tried something. He was just whatever, you know. The Hiranyakashipu tried so many ways of killing him, and Prahlad Maharaj didn't even, he just chanted. He was just chanting constantly, and that's it. His shelter was Krishna. And because he was in Krishna's shelter, he had absolutely no anxiety and no fear. Even when he was put, you know, in a pyre of fire, or he was put in a, you know, he was actually put in boiling oil. So in circumstances that you're supposed to perish, die, he still was, you know, like that. So his quality was he was constantly remembering Krishna. And the other example was similar to Gajendra, well, in some ways similar to Gajendra, but it was in a much higher, you know, a greater devotee according to the scriptures. The example of Draupadi, Queen Draupadi. Draupadi, when she was insulted and taken by force by Dushashan into the court of the Kurus, and was trying to be disrobed, the first thing she did was to call for help the shelter of her husbands, who were most powerful warriors. The first thing she did, you know, for call for the help. But that failed. They couldn't help her. Then she looked up to the elders of the court, you know, grandfather Bhishma and Dronacharya and Kripacharya and Dhritarashtra. All of them were there, so she was asking for help. And that failed. They didn't help. They couldn't help. Then she started to rely on her own strength, which was very soon she could understand there's no way. She was holding the sari with her teeth. And then, but, you know, Dushashan was, you know, a Maharata, you know, a powerful warrior, gigantic. So there was no way she was going to. So there she was, trying to hold the sari against this huge, powerful warrior. Although she was very powerful, she was, you know, a warrior lady, there was no match. So she then surrendered to Krishna, the famous Hey Govinda, you know, prayers of Queen Draupadi, and she was saved. So Krishna could have saved her before, but he didn't. Why? Because she was relying on some other shelter. So when she was able to take fully the shelter of Krishna, then Krishna immediately protected. So Krishna reciprocates like that. It's according to with how much sincerity and how you say, how we genuinely fully take shelter of him, and he gives protection. And sometimes devotees were put in such a situation that just like Ajendra and just like Draupadi, that we have no more shelters but to go to Krishna. And that's what happened to devotees. Prabhupada quotes this verse that for devotees, they naturally, when everything runs out, especially devotees that are affected by some materialistic tendencies, Krishna puts in the situation, and when there is no more shelter, then one goes, oh God, Krishna, one calls. And then Krishna can show, Krishna will manifest, will help. Now, Krishna's help could be that he eliminates the situation, and Krishna's help could be that he just gives you the capacity to tolerate and to deal with the situation in such a way that your faith grows. So Krishna makes us, go through these things in some way that we become more Krishna conscious. So the principle to be learned is a very important principle in Krishna consciousness, and is the main principle. It's the king of all principles. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this principle that is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He quotes this verse from the Padma Purana as the king of all regulations, the king of all principles. Smartabhya satatam Vishnur Bishmartabhyo najatu chit. That always remember Krishna and never forget him. So everything we do, everything we are doing in the life, spiritual life, in the cultivation of spiritual life, for us conditioned souls in this material world, is to bring us to that principle, to fully being able to embrace this principle, to get it perfectly, to always remember Krishna and to never forget him. All rules and regulations, prohibitions, practices, everything we do, they're simply servants of these two principles. They're simply assisting us to actually being able to possess this principle. And how do we do that? What is the main practice that is given to us? Shravanam Kirtanam. Shravanam Kirtanam, specifically in the chanting of the holy names. That's the process that Lord Chaitanya gave us. So by the practice of the holy names, we cultivate, basically, we train ourselves to always, our mind goes to Krishna naturally. So that's what we do. That's like during the Gita Nagari retreat, Srila Ravindra Swarup Prabhu was explaining this importance during the japa time. He says, during that time, we just only have three elements. It's the simple and most important time that we can have to cultivate and to train ourselves to get to this principle of never forgetting, always remembering Krishna, never forget him. During the japa period, there's only three things that we have to deal with. There's our mind, there is the holy name, and this ourself, no? Ourself, our mind, and the holy name. Our mind is the one that is the one that is causing all the trouble. So we have to make sure that the mind goes to the holy name. And that in particular trains us that when it comes to the situation of difficulty, in any situation, in actually any situation, our mind goes to Krishna. It doesn't have to be even difficult. It could be positive. Any situation, our minds go to Krishna. But it specifically becomes very relevant in a situation, in a dire situation, a situation that you're, a very dangerous situation. And the famous verses, the three verses in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 that explains, why it's so relevant. I mean that we do this, that we're able to be, we have the capacity for our mind to go immediately towards Krishna. Is from the question that Arjuna asked several questions at the beginning of the 8th chapter, and one of the questions is how a man can obtain you at the time of death, or can obtain the shelter of Krishna at the time of death. How does that happen? And then Krishna says, that famous Antakala Chaman Evyam Smaram Muktva Kalevaram, that at the end of life, if this Smaram Muktva Kalevaram, if we remember in Krishna at the end of life, then for sure we will obtain his nature. And then he says, therefore, because he say the next phrase, Jam Jam Bapi Smaram Bamam Tyayantyate Kalevaram, that whatever you think about it at the time of death, whatever your mind goes, that you will obtain. So so that's sort of scary. Whatever shelter your mind is attached to, that you will obtain. So if you're really attached to your dog, you have, that's a very, difficult thing. You can end, most likely you end as a dog in the next life. So therefore, Krishna says, that's mat sarveshu kaleshu. Therefore, at all times, you always remember me. While doing your duty, you still always remember me. So it's an important principle that we have to, that these stories, specifically the story of Gajendra, teaches. And there's a lot of beautiful stories, Sankirtan stories, that the devotees talk, in which they find themselves calling up for Krishna in situations of great danger. Prabhupada says that in a situations of great danger, just chant Hare Krishna and see what happens. Basically, whatever happens, And Prabhupada was saying like that, whatever happens. And he's saying like that, he tells his personal story. that during the Second World War, Prabhupada was a young man in Calcutta. And during that time, the Japanese, it was known that they were heading towards, they were already bombing so many, of the headquarters of, the British and the French. So, and the Americans, like that. So they were in this bombing campaign. The headquarters of the British Empire in Asia was in Calcutta. And that's where they have the armory and everything. So it was known that the Japanese were going to bomb, Calcutta. And Prabhupada tells a story like that. And all the citizens of the city were evacuating. So people were, starting to leave the city because it was going to be bombed. And Prabhupada decided, no, he'll stay. So he decided to go and chant Hare Krishna. He decided to chant Hare Krishna. It's explained, this Bhakti Churu Maharaj tells the story, I remember, that Prabhupada went on Harinam. Imagine with some of the devotees from the Gaudiya Math. And during somehow or other, and Prabhupada's thinking, his plan, is that taking shelter of the holy name, then two things can happen. Either Krishna will completely protect you and nothing happens to you, or the other thing is that you die in the bombing, and then you die while chanting Hare Krishna, you go back home, back to Godhead. So if you get saved, you win. And if you get killed, you also win. Something like the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, If you win, you win, and if you lose, you win. So Prabhupada was thinking like that, and it is explained that somehow or other, there's no explanation. The Japanese didn't bomb Calcutta. There's no understanding why not. It was already known that they were going to bomb Calcutta, but they didn't, and it doesn't. There's no explanation why. But those who were followers of Srila Prabhupada understood that Prabhupada was chanting in the street. There's another story. Bhakta Igor Prabhu, that is explained the collapse of the Soviet communist, ruling, that was very much against, the Hare Krishna movement and actually religious in general. They declined the existence of God. It was part of their whole concept, But the Hare Krishna movement was growing so big in Russia in despite of communism. And in the 80s, as the devotees were persecuted, somehow or other the whole thing collapsed. So Krishna's protection. There's other stories more graphic. These are Sankirtan stories, devotees tell. I remember hearing it. But this one, there was a book distributor, a young girl in Europe, and she was distributing books, and all of a sudden, this huge thought, went to attack her. And this girl, she just started to chant Nrsimha prayers, loud. And as this guy is coming towards her to attack her, she's starting to chant, Nrsimha prayers. He just turned back and then she just went away. Just like that. There's another story that this was fantastic. Who told this story? I think one of the big book distributors in Europe. I can't remember his name now. Very famous book distributor. He said the devotees used to go in Germany, this is in Hamburg. There's an area that, is all this area of drunkards. There's so many bars, so people just go there, to get drunk during night. So the whole bunch of devotees from Hamburg, they got into this Lord Nityananda's mood, like these are, these are the most sinful people. We're going to bring the holy name there. So they go on Harinam there. And, this during night, these bars, all these drunkards, in this whole area. And they go in there and they chanting Hare Krishna. And all of a sudden, this huge, bulky, muscular guy, completely drunk, he's starting to curse them and just like, the Jagai Madai type of thing. He just go and is starting to run towards the devotees. And, it was huge. And he was with another friends, like that. So the devotees didn't have anywhere to go because they were by a bar like that. And it's explained that we're, almost like against the wall. And they just kept chanting, they didn't know what to do. And so this guy cursing, running towards them. All of a sudden, he just got high in the, explain that he jumped or something, but what it looks is like he was like elevated from the floor and fell. Gone. Like the guy passed out like that. And then the ambulance come, the guy is dead. He got a massive heart attack. It's gone there. So what it looks is like, the guy was, taken from the floor and then drop. He died. So devotees were saved. There's another one that he was just distracted. Yeah. And then there's another one of this was in France, another Sankirtan story. Well, this is not exactly Sankirtan. This was, this ugly, huge, demoniac guy, drunk. He comes in the temple. Suppose one afternoon, no one is around. He just comes in cursing, like he's going to, take care of these, destroy these idols and things like that. He wanted to, just go into the altar and do something to the deities. And there was this very skinny pujari, something like, maybe like Naveen Krishna Prabhu in the altar, just by time, and this huge guy, some gentle thing, small pujari. And this huge thing just comes, cursing. What is this pujari does? Well, he have to protect the deities. And somehow, that without thinking, this small guy, devotee, just come and bash this huge guy and kick him out. So somehow or other, he just bashed the guy. And, the devotees, when they found out, they asked, Prabhu, how you were able to do that? And then he said, I don't know. I just did it. He just, something took up over him, and just did it. So some strength, came to the devotee and able to do that. So there is something that we're being given that is very special, especially when you are doing service to Krishna, especially when you put yourself on the line to serve Guru and Krishna, that there's no doubt there's a special protection there. And sometimes it's very graphic like that. Krishna does it, like there's no doubt that Krishna has his hand on it. There's no doubt that Krishna is doing something to allow, the devotee to be protected and safe. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes, the devotee has to go to some, distressful situation. But then Krishna protects the devotee who takes shelter on Krishna by giving him the capacity to deal with that circumstance with no distress. Actually, the devotee is given this capacity based on tolerance and gratitude to deal with all kinds of stressful situations. So the idea is that that's what we've been given. We're given the capacity to take shelter of Krishna, to experience Krishna's shelter, and the most we actually realize and live with on the understanding that Krishna is my only shelter, then the reciprocation will be even much more clear for us like that. But even in our level, we can actually experience that. Even in a beginning level, we experience Krishna's hand, Krishna's kindness, Krishna's protection, and so it's a very important lesson that we have to deeply strive for, and cultivate these the practices to always to have Krishna as our only shelter, to have Krishna as our protector, as our maintainer. These are the 6 limbs of surrender. Krishna as our maintainer, as our protector, as our shelter, and being able to surrender to surrender everything to him. And I forgot the 6th one, but anyway, they're there. Any comments or questions? Yes, Prabhuji. Dr. Jordan.
Kind of just on what you were just talking about last. I'm wondering how serious our practice should be. How, like, you see the devotees, like, to get to that level of like complete dependence and remembering of Krishna, from where we're at there, how important it is to be like extremely serious in your practice?
Well, it's like anything, is necessary. The more serious we are, the I won't say fastest necessarily, because it's not about being fast, but Krishna reciprocates accordingly to how serious we are, how sincere we are. So he will reciprocate accordingly by giving us the intelligence and the understanding, and everything from within the heart. So that's Bhagavad Gita, knowledge that Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam comes from actually our practices. So our sadhana is almost like a lifeline for us. Because there's something that we experience as devotees, that when our sadhana is not steady, our focus in our sadhana is not steady, it goes, in upside downs according to how, our mind takes us here and there, between our attachments and our desire to serve Krishna. Those things become obstacles. So we're dealing with obstacles, and the process of taking the obstacles away is how seriously you apply your devotional practices, your sadhana. So, if we are a little relaxed about it, obviously, you're not going to be so effective in removing obstacles. So we really have to, and then the question is, I really want to, but even though every time I try, I always, feel, somehow or other get victimized by my condition. Although the desire is there to overcome the material condition, sometimes is very challenging. And that's something that is also sort of natural. Therefore, we have to pray for Krishna's help. So there's the prayers that Srila Rupa Goswami says, that hoping against hope. So we may see ourselves as hopeless in terms of being able to be focused, in our spiritual, very, very strong and serious in our spiritual practices. But Krishna is very kind, and if Krishna sees that we're sincerely endeavoring, then he will help. He helps. So, the combination of two things, Krishna's mercy and our sincere, our strong endeavor, to the best of our abilities. That combination will do. So, that's important. Is that all right?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. It's kind of related to Jordan's point too. I was going to ask this question anyway. You were mentioning about removing obstacles. So one point I appreciated when you mentioned in class was that you didn't exactly say it like this, but you essentially said that Krishna could do two things. He could remove obstacles on the outside, circumstances, etc., or he could remove obstacles on the inside by giving us the ability to tolerate and be humble. And so this reminds me of one point by Bhaktisiddhanta. It's in Bhaktisiddhanta by Bob, the volume 1. The chapter is called Revolutionary Preacher of Truth. He mentions a nice point in this regard. He says, when Bhagavan is merciful to me, he sends unlimited persons to speak sour and disrespectful words to me just to teach me tolerance. So my question is essentially related to the point of kind of taking help, like Gajendra was mentioned that he needed help. And my question is related to the point of how we could take help from everyone, even from, we usually say take help from peer devotees. Okay, that's good, but also take help from, let's say, those who aren't peer, those who are very disrespectful. Like, for example, we could see that Hiranyakashipu, for example, like us, he was looking for absolute honor and respect. And that's kind of like our circumstances. If somebody's not giving me absolute honor or respect, don't associate with them. They're not a pure devotee. So my question is related to the point, how can we appreciate those who do disrespect us? Because they're actually acting as our Shitcha to remove our obstacles of pride, our false ego, that I'm not the enjoyer of this material world, because I'm definitely not enjoying this disrespect. I could gain a realization quickly that I'm not the enjoyer. So how can we develop appreciation of not just people who boost our false ego by always honor and respect us, but those who disrespect us. Otherwise, we'll always be miserable. If 99 people are disrespecting us, we're going to be miserable 99% of the time. And the one person we respect, that's nothing. So can you elaborate on that point?
Jai Baladev, you asked that question so many times.
a point that comes up. Even Lord Chaitanya in the Chaitanya, it says, Urva Bahu Kari Kohan Shunu Sarvalo Nama Sutra Ganti Padakanta Eshlo, that one should always remember Trinadapi Suni chain of where this, put this string, this verse on the thread of the holy name, and always remember it every day at every moment, just like we brush our teeth every day.
Yeah, yeah, you got the answer, you know. And in one sense, you know, Krishna, what you say, sometimes, you know, even if it's Krishna sends, you know, devotees to tell us something, honor and respect, that whole thing is in the mind. All the stuff, all those designations that have to do with honor, dishonor, this is all things that is in the mind. So sometimes, you know, a devotee may be telling you something really nice, or, you know, have something that is good for us, and then we see it as an insult, you know, like that. So I would say it's like, which you probably heard before, you know, and you know, it's a particular subject matter that, you know, is very important for you, and you think a lot about it, you know, which is good. And you hear many responses about it from many angles, you know. But one of the things is that it's like an itch you have to tolerate. You know, that whole thing of it's not about who or what, or if it's really happening or not. You know, it's about ourselves, that we're so caught on that we have to don't pay attention, just tolerate it. If you scratch it, if you have one of those, you know, itches, that, you know, the way to relieve it is to scratch it, it never works, because you scratch it and it becomes even more, you know, annoying. And you need to keep scratching and never gets relieved. So the thing is that, you know, just tolerate the thing, just don't think about it. Like chant Hare Krishna. You know, I mean, we hear that sometimes and we say, oh, okay, yeah, right. Chant Hare Krishna for everything, you know. But the principle is that, you know, really what we have to try to do is understand that we're, you know, a spirit soul in relationship with Krishna, and our purpose is really to serve, you know. And a servant is, if we start to try to embrace that position of I'm a servant, and not just a servant, but I'm just an insignificant servant. That's what Lord Chaitanya said. You know, Anu Das, an insignificant servant. Then what's the, you know, a servant? An insignificant servant is like, hey, pick up that, take that, whatever. You know, insignificant servant. So we have that mood towards a devotee. So a devotee treats you bad, you serve the devotee. You tolerate like that and do. I mean, it's not easy, but it's just part of you know, what Dr. Jordan Prabhu was asking. Sadhana, association with devotees, serving the devotees. That's what we do in order to evolve, to be able to take all those obstacles, those things, those ideas, you know, those things that have to do with, oh, don't you know, I should be respected, at least, you know, I'm a devotee or something like that, all these things. So don't think too much about it. Any other question? Yes, bro.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a class. Like you were saying at the beginning of the class, you're saying that we conditioned to think that, you know, we have to be strong got to go to school, we have to work, and we have to condition our minds to get the job done from our own strength. So where do we draw the line as far as, if this, as far as us being strong enough to get the job done, and we, as far as drawing the line that Krishna is doing this for us. Can you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, the way I understand, and it's something that we have to remember all the time, that our strength and our capacity of doing something, anything, our strength is the order and the instruction of the spiritual master. That's where our strength lies. That's where our capacity of doing and executing lies. So my spiritual master direction is the source of all my strength and my capacity. So Arjuna, the example of Arjuna, on the strength of Krishna's instructions, Arjuna was able to vanquish, 18 Akshahinis, like the most powerful warriors of the world, the universe, basically. And without Krishna's, without that, without that presence of Krishna's power, then he was not able to protect the queens of Dwarka from a whole bunch of, petty thieves, like that. So just examples, like that. But the principle is that the instruction of the spiritual master, Guru and Krishna, is our strength. And that's our shelter, that's our capacity, that's what allows everything to be done. When we think we're the doer, then we're in a very big predicament, because anything can knock it down. We think we can do independently. Even in devotional service, sometimes we want to act, we have all these big ideas about how to spread Krishna consciousness. And if we try to do that independently from the instruction of the spiritual master, it's just an illusion. It's an illusion that is meant to actually cause some disturbance. So we have to, the instruction of the spiritual master is the principle for being able to have the capacity to do. That's my understanding, my realization. Jitendra Prabhu.
Yeah, we also understand from the last verse in the Bhagavad Gita, wherever there's Krishna, wherever there's Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will be morality and what's the rest of it?
All power and all victory.
So, and then another thing is we also have to take in consideration the five things of action. The senses, the place, the time, ourselves, and the Supreme Lord. Without considering those, you have to, we're not the doers. And then another thing for historical correctness, I just remember that although Calcutta, Delhi, Bombay, and Madras, they were the four biggest cities, the capital of India moved to Delhi in 1911 because Calcutta was such a volatile place. They thought they could have more control in Delhi than over the Bengalis. I remember reading that several times. And then another thing is, in the last verse of this chapter, I was thinking ahead before I even read it, but Krishna says we should always remember the time factor, that all things will come to an end. And then, Prabhupada talks about the British Empire, the Egyptian, all all these empires, they have all come and gone, you know, and it's the time factor that takes everything away. And Prabhupada says that we're not conscious of the time factor. It's such a subtle thing that it's gradually just taking our life away. But for one who's engaging in Krishna consciousness, he's on a different platform. And that also the purport in the last chapter, the last verse in this book, it says that, you know, this will be can be our last. You know, we'll probably come to that tomorrow. But there's still one more verse left in this chapter. Is that right?
I don't know.
Oh, you just concentrated on the one here.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, there's
32 is there also. And then it comes the prayers of Gajendra.
Yeah, and then verse 32 and 33. But it's in the purport there. But I was just thinking of those things before I read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.